Hi, today's Thursday, October 19th. I believe it's the 13th day of the war. I just got a note from a Palestinian Christian who said, stop calling this a war between Israel and Hamas because the Palestinian people are being caught in the middle and they're being slaughtered. And you might feel like that language is not appropriate or that's not the right terminology. But I right now, just even as we're speaking, I'm getting text messages. We just received news from a trusted source, someone we know well in Gaza, that there was a bombing next to the Orthodox Church in St. Porphyrius. And St. Porphyrius is actually a church that we heard was bombed a few days ago. And then it hit the news because we'd heard that there were Christians that not only Christians, but other refugees and displaced people that were staying in the church. And then we'd heard that it was bombed, and then it ended up being a false report. And so when I got news just maybe an hour ago or 2 hours ago that it was happening again, I thought, oh, this is just a resurgence of the false report. Well, then I started getting abundant messages via WhatsApp from multiple different people. And now Palestinian news sources are starting to report, Palestinian friends are starting to post on X and Twitter. This has not been picked up by the Western media yet. I initially heard that there were at least half a dozen deaths. We're now hearing even more than that. I've seen pictures of the rubble, and I've heard that there are still bodies underneath. And I think what I most want people to know in this moment is that, we're reporting a lot on the politics, and is there a ceasefire, and what about humanitarian assistance, and these big numbers, or the conversation between Biden and Netanyahu, and all these types of things. And just people are being affected, like normal, everyday people, like people like you and me who just want water and food and to be able to raise their kids, and people who don't have a lot of resources. And Gaza, as of yet, since the war began on October 7th, not one vehicle of humanitarian assistance has been allowed in. And here in the news, we're celebrating that President Biden brokered a deal. This just happened yesterday. When President Biden was meeting with Netanyahu, there were negotiations between Egypt, the United States, Egypt, the United States, and Israel about the opening of the Rafah border and about trucks. Right now, there's a convoy of we hear it's more than a mile long of trucks that has humanitarian emergency assistance, health materials for hospitals, food supplies, just basic necessities. And we hear that this deal was brokered, and it's something that's being lauded. President Biden promised $100 million for humanitarian assistance to Palestinians. This was yesterday. And I woke up this morning here in the United States. And so this deal that Israel would not intervene in terms of access between the humanitarian assistance, this was brokered yesterday. And then at the UN Security Council, the US vetoed a resolution that would have allowed for what's called a humanitarian pause. And that's necessary if you want humanitarian workers to be able to go into a war zone, to be able to meet the needs of people who have been injured or who don't have their basic needs being met. You have to have a temporary ceasefire, a humanitarian pause, so that humanitarian workers don't get killed. And we heard from the Egyptian government that at least 4 Egyptians have been killed at the Rafah border. And so, Israel said that they would not intervene. They just want to make sure humanitarian supplies don't get to Hamas. And so after this meeting with Biden, after these negotiations, after this agreement on humanitarian assistance, I woke up this morning and the Rafah border and crossing to Egypt, that very area, and the city in South Gaza, where all of these northern residents, these Palestinians from northern Gaza, had been told to flee by the Israeli government. The city of Khan Yunis had been bombed again while we were sleeping last night. And it just makes me feel like the whole political conversation is such a farce because, we're thinking, oh, well, at least they'll have water. The White House said several days ago, the water was turned on in South Gaza. And so Churches for Middle East Peace We worked for several hours today. We just put out a statement. The average person in Gaza, the average refugee from UNRWA is having less than a liter of water per day. The World Health Organization calls for more than 100 liters of water per day required per person for washing, for food, for sanitation. And so pretty soon, we will have a major health crisis because of waterborne illnesses, cholera and things like that could spread rapidly, which would take this catastrophic humanitarian crisis to the next level. And so we worked all day on this issue of, wait a minute, we want the world to know what you're reading in the news about humanitarian issues and humanitarian access. Whatever this deal was, the bombing is still happening. There is not a humanitarian pause. All the news is reporting today that, maybe the humanitarian access from the Rafah border will be open tomorrow. That would be Friday. And guess what they're talking about? They're talking about 20 trucks. There's more than 1 million people who've been displaced. There's been thousands and thousands of bombs dropped the past week. And 20 trucks. Before the war began, on average, there were more than 100 trucks a day that went into Gaza just so that the people in Gaza would not be malnourished. And that was before the war, because there already was poverty and refugees, and there already were so many needs, and water was already an issue because of the siege and the blockade that has existed for 16 years. So the humanitarian crisis is catastrophic, and we're at day 13. And then, this afternoon, it probably was 11 o'clock or so when I got a text message, 11 o'clock or so in Gaza, when I got a text message about the bombing, that had destroyed this church. And so, people online and things are saying, well, don't say anything until it's confirmed. The person I was texting with on the ground, I said, please send me pictures. And they sent me videos that I had not seen posted online. We'll wait, of course, to hear from the Orthodox Patriarchate. It's an Orthodox church. The news is catastrophic, and our American government is not listening to us. And I am grievous at the attacks by Hamas on October 7th, and believe that the situation just should not have devastating impact on civilians. And so we had another board meeting today. We had another briefing today. We will continue to pray. We will continue to brief. We'll continue to keep you informed. Please give, act, and pray. Go to our website, share our social media, share the things we're communicating. The world should not be this broken. And all people, Jewish people, Muslim people, Christians, Israelis, Palestinians, all people should have hope for a future, and their lives should value and should be protected. And I believe that about the hostages, and I so desperately want them to be returned home to their family. And as Jewish communities around the world are grieving, I lament alongside of them, and I grieve the reality of what all of this means for Jewish people in Israel and Jewish people around the world. And I would beg on the Jewish community and religious communities and all of us to just say, but that doesn't mean that, Palestinian civilians should be caught in the middle. They shouldn't pay the price for Hamas's horrific actions. So we'll continue to work for the war to be brought to an end. Thank you for those who are offering support and encouragement and prayer along the way.